Hello, everybody. I hope that you guys are all having a good day. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. And today I wanted to go over specifically what I feel and what I have noticed that an avoidant needs to feel and needs to have to commit to someone. So before they commit. I work with a lot of avoidants, and some have actually told me a lot of this as well. Any example that I use in any of my videos, they are not real. I see a lot of individuals, so they sound very real because I see so many different lives that I'm very aware of how these individuals work. And so they are very realistic examples, but they are still examples. And so avoidant individuals, their specific fears tend to be suffocation, love, attachment, failure, and loss of control. Not all the time, but often these are also the root of why they struggle to commit. And there are other fears as well, but those are pretty common and they're pretty specific as well. When an avoidant feels like these aspects are secured and they're less likely to be these fears to happen, right? If their fear is suffocation and they feel like they're not going to be suffocated, they're more likely to commit. Does that make sense? So this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. The point is not to manipulate a partner, but to create connection and trust. So today, we're talking about what an avoidant needs to feel in themselves, in the relationship, to commit. And before we do, I do want you guys to think a little bit about the aspects of fears that we just discussed, the suffocation, love, attachment, failure, and loss of control. And try and think about ways, if you're in your relationship with an avoidant, how you could minimize these fears from flaring up in your relationship. So let's go ahead and pick an example before we go into kind of the aspects that the avoidant needs to commit. The reason why I'm doing this before we go into the aspects is because if you have all these aspects that we're about to bring up, but you still are triggering their fears, it's very unlikely that they're going to commit because their fears are still very alive. So I'm going to show an exercise of how you guys can kind of do this with your own relationship. And then from there, you guys can take it. So let's go ahead and do failure. Let's say an avoidant individual is always reprimanded in their relationship, whether or not their partner means it or not. Their partner may say, you never answer the phone. You always are dismissing me. You always ignore me. You don't care. All you care about is yourself. I think that might trigger their fear of failure. What do you think? Sounds like you're kind of saying that they're not enough as a person, whether you mean it or not. And I'm not really saying you. We're just using an example, right? But that kind of triggers their fear of failure. So when you're communicating with your avoidant partner, try to remember some of these fears that we discussed earlier and think, am I saying something that may trigger these fears? Because if you are, maybe there's another way to say it to actually allow your partner to be closer to you instead of be pushed away, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about some of the many ways that an avoidant kind of needs to feel secure in their relationship in order to commit. So the first one I would say would be reliability. And this typically means as a partner, you would have stable moods as well as a stable connection. So what's an example of a stable mood? A stable mood could mean, even if it doesn't mean that you can never be sad or angry or happy, it just means that you can kind of manage those things and it don't go completely, the only word I have, which is not a clinical word, and I'm going to sound so immature when I say that, but it's like when you don't crash out, you know what I mean? Oh my God, I'm so sorry I used that word. It's like the only word I had. You can have your feelings, you just don't crash out. Oh my God, I didn't say that. Okay, I hope you get what I meant. You have your stable moods and you're able to manage your moods kind of by yourself and also with your partner, but it never goes to the point where it's abrupt and it's disrupting your guys' peace continuously, right? And so an example of a stable mood would be that maybe you had a really bad day at work and you've decided, you need to take a walk, you need to maybe call a friend, and maybe after that talk to your partner about how your day was, right? And during that entire time, you didn't have any outbursts, you weren't angry, you weren't picking on random things, because you already knew, okay, I'm not in a good mood, let me do what I need to do so that I can be stable, and you included your partner in that, right? Stable communication as well. Another form of stable communication is you're appropriate when answering your messages. So if you're the type of person who likes to answer your messages as prompt as possible, depending on your work situation, etc., you continue to be that way. So the first one, as we had mentioned, is reliability, right? You're reliable. Your moods are reliable. The way you manage yourself is reliable. Your communication is reliable. Very, very important for an avoidant to feel like they can commit, okay? The next one is no games or no manipulation, right? This is really important. And I really want you guys to understand this, because a lot of times, a lot of individuals don't realize what they're saying is still a game. So what's an example of a game so that you can kind of understand what I'm saying? Because an example of no games is like a lot of communication. So I'll give you an example of what a game or manipulation could be. And I've mentioned this one quite a bit, but I feel like it's kind of something a lot of people don't understand. It's the concept of matching somebody's energy. I hope that you guys know what I mean when I say that. It's like if an avoidant doesn't ever initiate, then you never initiate. The avoidant takes X amount of hours, then you take X amount of hours. Me just saying it out loud sounds a little overwhelming. Like, it does sound like a game, don't you think? I would consider it a game. And an avoidant partner likely will too. Avoidants don't like manipulation. If they ever really recognize that you are in fact manipulating them, the likelihood of you ever winning their trust again is pretty low. I'll just be honest with you. It's really hard for an avoidant to trust you. And of course it can happen. It takes work, but it's really hard for an avoidant to trust you. And it would take even longer for them to commit to you if you're the type of person that plays games very frequently, okay? Or in general, honestly. So if you really want your partner to learn to feel comfortable and ready to commit, because commitment is healthy for the most part, right? We want to help individuals to connect and have relationships. It's really important to not be manipulative and have no games. Does that make sense? The next one is willingness to compromise for the relationship. So a lot of people think that means giving up what you need. That's not what I mean. It just means sometimes different things have different priorities at different times in your life. That sounds like a mouthful, so let's break it up. Maybe you want to get married right now, but the avoidant individual is still stuck at learning to trust you. I don't know about you, and I could be wrong, but I think right now the priority is probably to help your partner trust you, because if you guys get married and there's still no trust, I feel like the likelihood of divorce might be higher. What do you guys think? And so I would prioritize trusting, building trust instead of building marriage, which would mean that the marriage might have to be on the back burner right now. So that's kind of an example of how you can kind of compromise, willingness to compromise in the relationship and kind of put the relationship forward and in the forefront of your priorities instead of what you want right away. Even though it does feel like you're prioritizing your partner, but that's not necessarily true, because at this point, that wound is a barrier. It's going to create an issue. So that one just takes priority for whatever reason, at least from my perspective, and I could be wrong, right? That doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. That doesn't mean it's always the avoidance way. That's not what I'm saying. But try and look at it. If you don't prioritize certain things, are you in fact just creating more issues down the road? Does that make sense? I hope it does. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put in the comments. I don't mind. So it's the willingness to compromise. That's really important. The next one is also, it's similar to when I said no games, but this one's a little different. I would say low levels of negativity is really important. Some people will say no drama. I think that sounds kind of mean, but I gave that example because some people, it just clicks easier. It doesn't mean your emotions are drama. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes it just means, sometimes thinking of the positive instead of the negative. At least my partner's here. At least my partner is trying. At least I know my partner is loyal. Looking at the positivity, working at your relationship through a positive scope instead of a negative scope. This isn't here. I don't have this. Let me go ahead and try and get this. Let me push my partner to get that. That's like a negative perspective. Instead of, wow, we're doing so well. My partner has changed a lot. I can't wait for the moment where I notice that he or she is changing even more and we're able to get married and have a family together and buy a house together, whatever it may be. But y'all can't get to that point in a healthy way until you learn to accept where you guys are at, right? And so that's important to always try and be positive. In fact, low levels of negativity while implementing positivity might be an even better way to describe that. Try to always use and approach your partner in a more positive aspect. Make sure that you feel like the relationship at this time, not all the time, because relationships have moments of strain, but majority of the time, it is more positive. It's a safe space for your partner and for you, right? I don't think that you guys want to fight all the time either. I understand that a lot of people want their needs met, and sometimes they feel like the only way is to argue because their partner is not listening, and I get that. I am not saying that you should just roll over and just be happy with breadcrumbs. That's not what I'm saying at all, but try and look at what the positives are, because I notice a lot of individuals, especially anxious, preoccupied, I think it's a little hard to accept the positive stuff because you don't really trust it. And I understand that, but I would like if you guys are anxious, preoccupied, by the way, a little bit of a tangent here, but maybe try to just look at positives in general in your life. And that can help to bring in your relationship. So the fourth one, like we had mentioned, to help the avoidant feel, want to commit, what they feel they need to commit, would be low levels of negativity in the relationship. The fifth one is the ability to understand their moods, so your moods as the partner, as well as the avoidant partner to feel like they can understand yours. So this is usually common in long-term relationships. This is not even just avoidant individuals. Most individuals in general, anxious, all individuals, when they want a healthy commitment, typically this is a really important goal. It's for both people to understand how the other one is feeling in other ways, not just direct communication, but also, because direct communication is wonderful. I always tell you guys, direct communication is like the key to an avoidance heart, one of the keys, right? But it's also for you guys to be familiar with each other's patterns of their mood. So let me go ahead and give an example. Let's say the avoidant individual just comes home from work and they had a really rough day and they're really moody. You understand their mood even though they really didn't say it. It's not like they're hiding anything or anyone's manipulating. You just know it's been a rough day. They're in a bad mood. You know your partner, and most avoidants, they don't like to talk about it. They need their space. They need to watch TV. They need to just, eat chips and watch football, whatever you got to do, right? This is probably not the time to sit there and get upset at them that, that your best friend got married and you're wondering when you're going to get married, right? Probably not the best timing, right? So understanding their moods is really crucial, and they also want to understand yours. And so that's why you have to be more open about what you're feeling when the time is appropriate. Just like they need to be appropriate about their moods as well, which is why direct communication is an important part of that. I really hope that made sense, because I feel like that was a little confusing, and I'm sorry. Just the ability for both you guys to understand each other's moods, it's just a sign of being connected. So once you guys are able to understand each other a little bit more naturally, that's usually a precursor to when the avoidant wants to commit. Hope that cleared up a little bit more. And the final one. This one is so huge. This is so important. This is like, I almost feel like even regardless of commitment, like avoidants need this to love you. Commit, stay with you. And if you can do this, they will probably stay with you for as long as they can. This one is really important. And that is that they feel like they can be honest without them feeling like they're going to be reprimanded. And I know reprimand is a mean, I shouldn't use that word. I don't know how to describe it though. It's like they feel like they can be honest without you being so upset and berating them with negativity. They can tell you, I don't feel like cuddling right now. I need some space. And then you will be like, okay, I get that. You're not going to take it personally and think they don't love you. That's all they want. They just want to be themselves, and they will be more willing to accept what you need and who you are. I hope that makes sense. So let's break it up quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. Reliability, no games, willingness to compromise, low levels of negativity, the ability to understand one another, their moods specifically, and the ability that both of you guys actually can be honest without feeling judged by the other person. Having those 6 things in place is a precursor to an avoidant getting ready to feel like they can commit to you. I hope that makes sense. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and I will see you in the next one.